Hello, everyone. Bonjour, bonsoir à tous. Good morning, good evening, and welcome to this week's edition of the Wada Forum, our first official forum back of 2025. Thanks, everyone, so much for being here. We have an exciting agenda on the table today. After we go through our opening and a few updates, we will have our Cardano Governance Corner, where we will have a DREP panel discussion around some of the issues facing current DREPs. So we're glad everyone was here with us today, or if you're not here with us now, if you're watching this afterwards, thanks for being with us. Next slide. Here's a few lists of resources for people who want to learn more about Intersect, Cardano, or SingularityNet. I encourage you to explore these links on your own time and come back to next session with any questions that you might have. All right, Mercy, I'd love to invite you up to talk about our statement of purpose.
Hi, everyone. So, what keeps us going, what makes us wake up at 5 a.m. to join these calls. It's because we feel blessed. We feel that we have opportunity. We are grateful for the doors that are opening. And we want to make sure that we use that to elevate the underrepresented. We believe that the application of technology is a way to leapfrog people into the future. And we feel very honored to be able to do that. So that is our mission. Thanks, Megan.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Mercy. All right, so next we're going into our community network updates. So I can kick us off with Catalyst, and then I'll pass it over to Mercy for Intersect and Samuel for SNet. On the Catalyst side, I was at Town Hall yesterday. It was a bit more of a retrospective that they started the previous week. Seems like they'll be getting more into regularly scheduled town halls next week. Nothing in particular really to report there. Over to you, Mercy, for Intersect.
Yeah, I must say that the year for Intersect as an MBO, has really kicked off really strong. I will encourage everybody listening to, sort of lock in, as the young people will say. Explore membership options, whether enterprise, individual, or even associate membership. At this point, the two membership tiers, which is, like individual membership, that's $10. Enterprise is $1,000. And associate is free. There is so much that is going on. Once you join, you can join the Discord. You can join working groups. You can even work your way up to committee level. From a WADA perspective, we are actually looking forward to April and the new elections that will be coming up. As we saw from October, we didn't get a lot of community members sort of in emerging areas of the world, such as Sub-Saharan Africa. We know that a lot of you stood to get on committees, but I don't think that we strategized very well. So from a WADA perspective, we are really prepping to strategize so that we can be represented. Right now, when you look across committees of I think there are about 9 committees or so, and each of them have about 7 to 10 members. So that's almost about, let's say, a conservative number is about 70. And it's probably just myself, Darlington. For now, it's probably just us two that is representing sort of the Sub-Saharan African perspective. But the reason that a lot of us joined Cardano was because of that strong focus, whereby it was realized that there's a lot of potential in Africa, both because of the young population, because of our undefined structures, which gives a lot of opportunity when it comes to P2P, blockchain, and so on. That was the reason that some of us joined Cardano, and we need to realize that dream, even if it seems like that dream seems to sort of be sliding a little bit from the Cardano community side. We are the ones that have to hold the dream, and we are the ones that have to bring the reminders. So that is something that we're going to do very strongly, both in April and in October. So please look out for details. And finally, I just want to talk about some of the reorganization that is going on, especially with regards to regional hubs. Yesterday, there was a good meeting, was an open meeting. We need to look into that as well. But pretty much, looking at how the regional hubs can really truly be grassroots. And then finally, and maybe we'll talk about it a bit later on when we're doing the panel. But there are a lot of things going on, sort of actually on the voting governance side. And yeah, I think we'll talk about it once we get to the DREP section. So back to you, Megan. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mercy. Lots going on in Intersect. Lots out there. And maybe Samuel, are you with us?
Yes, Megan, I'm with you. And in terms of Singularity Net and defunding, not so much about except to talk about the RFPs that is really going on. There are three that we want to talk about high level and see if a community can take advantage of it, putting proposals and in their own interest areas. Number one has to do with the decentralized digital identity in the DDI research, which borders on has to integrate existing decentralized identity solutions to ensure unique verifiable identities for reputation scores. The second one has to do with the defunding community hubs. And this is where WADA as an entity has put in a proposal. And SNET is actually seeking individuals to lead and manage defunding community hub initiative. And these initiatives aim to establish and foster decentralized defunding communities centered around specific topics or areas of interest where a dedicated community will be valuable. Examples of these potential hubs include sustainable community hubs, women in AI community hub, Africa community hub, Asia community hub, etc., etc. The last one I want to talk about has to do with the reputation and the voting weight system, which borders on developing an architecture for modular microservices, an entire suite of key microservices and the user interface for defunding and SNET reputation and voting weight system. So these are the RFPs that is going on, and there are proposals being put forth in that space, and we encourage all our people to log on to their website, deepfunding.ai, read more about these RFPs and see where your interest or energy lies and take advantage of it. Again, I want to save time for the DREP discussion, which is the main activity for the day. Thank you.
All right, excellent. I think I saw some African proposals in there I was exploring. So congrats to everyone who made it over there and submitted something in the time frame. Next, I want to pass over to Nana Safo to give a quick WADA DREP update, and then we'll get into our panel discussion.
Sure. Thank you very much, Megan. Thanks to everyone who has joined us so far. So with WADA DREP, as of now, we have been able to amass about 11.45 million ADA delegations, and that is widely spread across about 46 delegators who believe in our vision or share in our vision. And we are forever grateful for the belief they have reposed in us as a DREP. And of course, we have also voted on a Cardano constitution to replace the interim constitution. So yeah, and we look forward to probably a fruitful turnout so that we can continue from there. Thanks. We'll talk more in the DREP forum discussion.
All right, excellent. Now I want to just pass the hosting mic over to Samuel to moderate the DREP panel discussion.
Thank you, Megan. And yes, I'm excited to moderate this crucial discussion on the topic inspiring the underrepresented to participate in Cardano governance and DREPs. Well, as you may all know, governance is the foundation of any truly decentralized system, and Cardano is actively evolving its governance models to ensure ADA holders have direct influence over the ecosystem's future. But governance is only as strong as the diversity of voices that contribute to it. So if decision-making is left to only a handful of participants, the question is, are we really decentralized? The introduction of DREPs in Cardano governance actually presents some incredible opportunity for ADA holders to sort of delegate their voting power to informed, responsible representatives. But there are blockers or there are challenges which continue to remain. Questions are who is stepping up to be a DREP? Are all communities being heard in governance decisions? How do we ensure governance participation is easy, accessible, and engaging? If you look at the status quo right now in many governance models, including these blockchain-based governance, we see low voter turnout, concentration of influence, and complexity acting as barriers. I want to give a particular example. In Fund 10 of Project Catalyst, for instance, the statistics show that less than 3% of all eligible ADA wallets participated in the entire voting process. So if Cardano governance remains in the hands of a small percentage of participants, the question is, are we really pushing power to the edges? So today's conversation is about finding practical solutions. How do we lower the barriers for participation, empower diverse voices, and ensure governance remains decentralized, not just in theory, but in action? So again, I'm excited to have the experts with us. Mercy is here. Megan is here. Nana Safo is our man on the beat as far as what the DREP is concerned. And we are also very honored to have Kenrick with us join this particular discussion. So I will go straight with my questions for now. I have categorized the questions in 5 main sections. I don't know if you have time to go through, but if we don't have time, maybe we can continue another time. First, I want us to look at why inclusive governance matters for Cardano's future. And here I want to start with Kenrick. Given that governance is the heart of Cardano's decentralized goals, in your perspective, what do you think happens when only a small group participates? Kenrick, this is for you.
Thank you, Sam. That's a very nice introduction. As many of you know, I've been a very active participant in Cardano governance, but I've also been a severe critic of the design that came out of the Voltaire team and was called SIP 1694. And the heart of my criticism is that decentralizing participation, which has been accomplished, does not reflect decentralization of power in making decisions as a community. So as an example, the DREP program is often referred to as liquid democracy based on publications that use that title. But there are no democratic principles in the way the DREP program has been designed. I think a better name for it would be liquid capitalism. And I would suggest that your group and others that care about these issues refer to the DREP program as a decentralized capitalist system. And the reason I say that, first of all, I am a capitalist. I own my own business. I grew up in the United States, and capitalism has made important contributions to human society. But we also know that outside of democratic regulations, capitalism just devolves into selfish intents that don't actually serve human needs, or they serve the needs of a few people and they end up exploiting lots of people. And so this is my other caution that I've written in the paper, particularly for communities like WADA. Understand that, entrepreneurs for over 500 years have always wanted very broad global participation in their businesses, right? So the fact that the business of Cardano wants broad participation does not mean that the leaders of this community are actually willing to decentralize the decision-making power. So from that, and I'll end here because I want others to be able to speak, and then I can come back. But from there, I would say there's two things. On the one hand, it is very important to participate so that you can influence and change the way we're making decisions. But you also have to be aware that the initial design does not come close to enabling communities like WADA to be adequately represented in the decision making.
Thank you very much, Henrik. What I gather from you is the fact that it's very important for the smaller groups to participate. At this point, I'll come to you, Mercy. What are the risks if DREP participation remains limited to just a handful of people, referring to early adopters or even only highly technical users?
Thanks for that, Samuel, and thanks so much, Henrik, for your for that contribution. We definitely do know that when it comes to how our DREP, the Cardano sort of DREP set up, as it is currently, there are a lot of gaps that will need to be addressed. So specifically to your question, what are some of the risks? So I think that one big risk that I see is actually why are we even into decentralization, right? Why do we all talk about decentralization? The reason that we talk about decentralization is that so that things will not be centralized. And why is it bad when things are centralized? When things are centralized, it's very easy to have a very narrow area of attack, right? So, just choose that one central point of attack.
Yeah.
That you can attack, isolate it, and then eliminate. Yeah. And the whole system comes crashing down. So a system that is not decentralized is actually not resilient, right? It doesn't have a long-term future. And it's not even the of attack, but also the inclination for corruption, right? Because it is just 1, 2, 3 people or entities that are responsible for holding the whole system together. You just go, you isolate them, you bribe them, and you can pretty much get whatever you want. Another issue is also disillusionment, right? As Henrik has rightly said, this whole thing is supposed to be global. It's supposed to be all over the world, and it's supposed to the only reason that it can be global is when everybody is participating. Sometimes there are people lately that don't want to hear about the word diversity, and it is very, very unfortunate, because what diversity does is that it brings numerous points of view. Sometimes I have been blown away listening to some of the contributions that come from our community members, especially from the WADA community from Sub-Saharan Africa, and it's because it's the lived reality is so different that people think about things differently, and what happens is that what that does is that it brings novel solutions to problems, not only at the local level, where people actually know what the issue is, but also at a global level. Because when we are looking, if we're looking at Cardano as, as we've all said, a global operating, sort of a protocol, then we have to make it such that adoption is at the local level. So if adoption is at the local level, then it means that the local people need to be able to engage, to be able to figure out, have a contribution when it comes to how things are done, let's say the roadmap and so on. So I think I'll wrap it up here. So I'm not going on and on. And like Henrik, I'm happy to come back for another contribution. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail right on the head in terms of the risk. They are very much articulated. I'll come to Megan and Nana Safo a bit later to get their perspectives per the understanding of barriers to participation, because they are managing DREPs. Nana Safo in charge of the WADA, and Megan in charge of the LACU DREP. But before that, I want to come to Henrik again. I know you are you've been around, and you have experiences in the blockchain governance space. What lessons do you think Cardano can learn from projects where governance became centralized over time?
Yeah. Okay. So one thing I will say, Cardano, I think, is making important strides in decentralization, and that has been fundamental to the community in ways that many other blockchains, even some in the top 10, have not been committed to. But it's the reason it's such a challenging aspiration is that complex systems have a tendency to converge to centralized hubs. And one of the things that physicists began modeling and understanding is that there's a very simple mechanism as to why this happens. And it's called preferential attachment. If you look at it in terms of social networks, if you're new to a community, you have a higher probability of meeting and connecting with someone in a new community that is already highly connected. In other words, you become aware of and you become connected to the leaders in that community first, before you're connected to people that are more on the edges of the community. And that probability of preferential attachment, if the community grows, then those people that already have high connections tend to grow their connections faster than people on the edges. Yeah. So now, how does that affect decentralization? And in particular, how does that affect the DREP program? One of the things that I've been asking the community to model more, and I'm making a forecast on, is that the DREP program is not actually going to contribute to decentralization. It's actually going to contribute to a process of centralizing control because of this effect of preferential attachment. So when new community members come to the Cardano community and they look at who they're going to delegate to, there's a false assumption that they're going to delegate to someone who maximizes their affinity and their views. But that's not actually how we make decisions. Rather, what they're going to do is they're going to be aware of the pool that has the most delegates, and they're going to evaluate whether that delegate is good enough for them in terms of what their interests are. And then they're literally, I'm not saying they're going to be conscious about this, but sort of unconsciously, they're going to just go down the list of who the largest pools are. And then they're going to find one that's close enough to their interests. And that's who they're going to delegate to. And then that also would, now the thing that I've asked Wolfram Research to do some analysis on this, and I think they are working on it, is I think in addition to this preferential attachment, there's also another issue in that I think that from the individual point of view, you actually get more power in the community by delegating to someone with a lot of coins already.
Sure.
And so even from just like a kind of a self-centered point of view of how do I, in my delegation choice, how do I maximize my influence in the community? I believe you do that by delegating to the largest pools.
Yeah.
And so that's the danger I see, is that the design, rather than helping to fulfill the aspirations of decentralization, is actually going to contribute to centralizing control.
Thank you very much, Henrik. At this point, Nana Safo, Megan, do you have any reactions to the discussion so far, or are we happy to move on with the other questions that I first posed to you? Maybe
I just wanted to just quickly jump on the last thing that Kenrick said, and thanks so much, Kenrick, for joining us today on the forum. I think it's absolutely right that the system would encourage us to delegate to those with kind of already the most ADA. But therefore, we need to use the system in a way that would support us better by not doing that. And in fact, by encouraging people who do have a lot of ADA, maybe to split their delegation into different community DREPs that maybe they want to support in some way, that they have some agreements with. I see this as a possible way that we can as a community get around some of the inherent biases that are in place due to kind of the structure of how things are operating.
Thanks, Megan. Mubarak, your hand is up. I will allow you to make your reaction. And let me also announce that for the rest of us in the room, if you have any reactions you want to make, kindly raise your hand as the discussion go on, and you'll be allowed to come through. Mubarak.
Yeah, Sam, sorry, do you mind if I go before Mubarak comes in?
Yes, Nana, sorry. I already mentioned you. So yes, take ahead, and Mubarak can come after you then. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. I mean, the speakers on call so far. I think you guys are making an amazing contribution thus far with regards to the discussion. I want to, personally thank people like Kenrick for conducting research into how we can make the process even more better. One thing that I do know, at least for a fact, is that like Kenrick said, the system, in as much as it has been designed, it looks really nice, really awesome. But if you look deep down into the system, you realize that it is not really going to encourage decentralization, like Kenrick put it. Or rather, it is going to encourage people to want to delegate to, the DRS with the biggest bucks who kind of align with their vision, especially when there is introduction of DREP rewards, and maybe in the future, if it's allowed, maybe incentivization for delegators as well, right? Just like we have seen for stake pool operation, I kind of foresee if care is not taken and if systems are not structured carefully, that is kind of the same tangent the DREP initiative is also going to tread on, in a sense that anybody who wants to delegate to a stake pool, for instance, they want to delegate to a stake pool that they can actually make some rewards. The only thing that is really kind of helping the ecosystem now was the introduction of the saturation limit, which kind of steers people away from actually delegating to stake pools with higher delegation points, right? But rather they want to look at those ones below the delegation limit so that they can also begin to make some profit. But then I know that going forward, once the systems are not structured carefully, we probably would see ourselves, getting in there. And in terms of, you asked a question about if, the DREP becomes adopted by the early adopters and, the technical users. That particular one, what I think about that is that if that becomes the case, then it will become a hell of a big problem for the entire community, because a lot of these other Twitter spaces that are happening around, a lot of these other events that are being hosted around and everything. One thing I do seem to understand is that a lot of people probably do not show up to show interest or even participate because because of the some level of technicalities involved. For instance, if you see a guy like Charles hosting, what do you call it, a space on Twitter, I mean, immediately it comes to mind that okay, he's going to talk technical, he's going to talk science, and all of these things. A lot of people who are not aligned with those kind of fields, do not even want to get there to, listen to what he's going to say. So I think we will have to find a fine balance because, of course, we need a technical, individuals on board to help with the process, and then we also need the early adopters on board to help with even onboarding processes of new DBs who come on board. So it will be really useful for the community to find a very fine balance so that it doesn't become like, it's just the technical folks who are actually taking charge, and that will become really messy, like real quick.
Yeah. So what I pick from your submission is that there should be an inclusivity, all hands on deck in this approach. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Can I have a quick reaction before we bring Kit in? And I like the focus to a solution, as Nana Safo just started, because I believe that, yes, right now, if we are not vigilant and if we don't, pick up, engage, sort of push back, then we are running very rapidly towards more centralization. So, as we are having this discussion, let's be careful that we don't make it a doom and gloom, but also to figure out what can be done as well, right? For instance, when we look at Intersect, the committees that are coming up, a lot of this DREP organization, and even when it comes to mobilizing to change, maybe, I don't know how we're going to go forward with sort of this stake-based vote and so on and so forth, all that actually is facilitated by Intersect. And what is good about Intersect at this point is the fact that it is not stake-based, right? It is more individual based to get, individual vote based to get, into the committees to influence sort of the governance of Cardano. So I want us to be as, a bit more sort of broad-minded in terms of what we can do. In the background, some of us are trying to organize to figure out what we can do in terms of slowing down the centralization of the DREP sort of ecosystem. So yeah, it's very easy in these situations to focus too much on what is not working instead of focusing on what is working and maybe figuring out how can we improve the status quo, so to speak. So thanks. That was my reaction at this point.
Yeah, Mercy, I agree with you. And I was hoping that we could have more time to actually concentrate on the solutions maybe later on the call, or maybe another time when we can have this panel discussion. Maybe now the focus is, dissecting the issues, looking in all angles to find out the possible problems associated with them, and then we'll be able to design solutions at this point. Mubarak, you can now have your time.
Hello, good afternoon. Hi, my name is Mubarak Oladimeji, known as Kitwilo on Twitter. I am a Cardano DREP from Nigeria.
Right.
And the alternate at the Cardano Constitution Convention. And I'm also now newly a member of a bootstrap committee in Intersect, the Marketing and Growth Committee. So, on the topic, I wanted to say that I really loved what Mr. Kenrick said about that. I just want to add something a little bit more in terms of the issues, right? The issue is, the third one is the ineffective stick model. That was the one thing I wanted to add. Cardano has always favored a carrot model, right? They've always favored, in the carrot and stick approach of it, they've always favored the carrot model. The whole blockchain practically runs on incentivization, right? They incentivize people to do things. They incentivize people to do a lot of things, right? Like catalyst and all that. So it is rather curious when when they are introducing decentralization governance, instead of running on that normal incentivization model, normal carrot model that we know of, that they are now introducing a stick model, right? By instead of incentivizing instead of decentralizing delegation, by incentivizing delegation, what they are doing is that they are punishing non-delegators by imposing a restriction from them to reward staking rewards if they are not delegated to them. So they transpose that. Now, the flip side to this is that staking rewards inherently, right, are only like it is only pertinent to people that are actually needing those staking rewards, right? In the sense that only people that have enough ADA, right? Only the whales make they substantially make more ADA, right? On that staking rewards. So that particular, if we look at it inherently, the philosophical aspect of it is that particular model was targeted to get the big whales to delegate rather than the small ADA holders, because anybody that has 10 ADA in their wallet don't really make that much from staking reward every epoch, right? So the if we truly want to solve that, we really need to look at two things. First, we have to decentralize the DREP model the way the SPO model was decentralized, and that involves introducing two things, which I believe, to be honest, only a hard fork could solve that, right? The first one is the saturation that Mr. Nana Safo said, right? We need to introduce that saturation. And the second one is to ensure that stick model goes, incentivizing delegation rather than punishing non-delegators. Because at the end of the day, only the whales really care about the staking model, and that is their target model. They've made it clear that is their target model, which is why I agreed with Mr. Kenerick that the DREP program, if we look at it in-depthly, it wasn't really introduced to ensure decentralization in governance. While it ensured decentralization in governance, it has contributed to centralization of control. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for your submission, Mubarak.
If I could respond to that, Sam,
okay, go ahead.
Brings an extremely important point. I have said that the Voltaire designers who wrote SIP 1694 were never actually intending to decentralize the power in the community. And when I got a lot of pushback on that from the leaders who worked on the design. However, that also made me go and read the SIP 1694 document more carefully. And one of the things, when you come to this withholding of rewards, that in the SIP 1694 document, it says that the purpose of withholding the rewards is to legitimize the design, which is to say that the designers of SIP 1694 knew they were putting forward a design that was not legitimate. And in order to try to cover up the illegitimacy of claiming this was a design for decentralization, they had to impose this punishment for people who didn't participate. Now, again, in maybe taking the counter side of it, these problems are extremely difficult. There are not easy solutions to coming up with a design that would actually achieve decentralization. And I just posted, we've written a number of papers on this issue leading up to a paper we published this year called Sociocratic Pluralism. And there's basically three components to making improvements. First of all, you have to accept that at the governance level, it is not appropriate for it to be permissionless. This is something that I think a lot of people in the cryptocurrency space are misunderstanding. We use the word permissionless in using the network, but the only reason that works is because the very strict permissions are handled in the software code. Every node has a unique identity, and the software has very strict protocol that nodes have to follow. If they don't follow that protocol, they get kicked out of the network very quickly. So the permission is in the software. That's what enables humans to use the network, because we have guarantees that humans can't misuse the network. But none of that applies to governance. The whole point of governance is that you're going to have human decision makers making those decisions. And if you want decentralized governance, the very first thing you have to work on is deciding who's a citizen of the community, how you would establish their rights to have permission to be in the governance, and what are violations of those rights, and given violations of those rights, what are the sanctions, to curtail some of their rights. If you don't do any of that, you haven't actually started to work on decentralized governance. And I think part of what's going on both in Cardano and the whole crypto space generally is because these problems are so difficult, they want to ignore them. They want to pretend that they don't have to work on those problems. But it's never, it's not going to work if you don't. So that's key. You have to understand that governance has to be permissioned, and you have to be clear as a community how you establish those permissions, and how you decide to sanction people who don't follow those permissions. Not pleasant, not an easy discussion, but it has to be done.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Henrik. Very cogent submissions there. Maybe now let's zoom into the understanding as regards the barriers to participation. Please, let's go on to the next slide. Let's have some statistics in terms of participation in general around the globe. Next slide, please. Okay, while we are waiting for Dufa to show us the next slide, I wanted us to look at some statistics in terms of so if you look at the voting power, I want us to concentrate on the voting power now, and maybe the DREP count. If you look at the picture in your shot, Asia has a voting power of 1.48 billion. Europe comes second, 561.1 million. Africa just 11.83. If you look at that, you see that there is a bit of huge gap there. And in terms of the direct count, while Asia, Europe, and then North America, 65, 81, 67 respectively, Africa has just 9. And I think that is a source of concern. At this point, like I said, this question goes to Megan and Nana Safu, who are already handling DREPs. So what is your understanding? What is holding people back? Is it lack of awareness? Is it complexity? Is it skepticism? And maybe after Nana Safu and Megan has taken their sides, maybe Henrik and Kemi Messi, everybody can just come in and share what we think is holding people back, because data actually shows governance engagement in Cardano as hugely low. Nana Safu, you want to go?
Yeah, I can go.
So my question is, what is really holding people back, especially, and at this point, let's concentrate on our part of the world, Africa, while we have just 9, while others have 81 and things like that in terms of the DREP count.
Sure. You mentioned three things. You mentioned whether it is lack of awareness,
or complexity,
whether there's
or
too much
skepticism.
complexity, or whether there's just so much skepticism among the individuals in Africa. I mean, for me, I wouldn't choose one over the other, because I do strongly believe that all the three play key roles in what we are seeing in terms of statistics. As an African, to better answer this question, I would rather want us to look at it from my African lens perspective, right? That way, we get to understand exactly what the issue probably may be, and why are people even not even delegating. I actually took the pain to ask the guys from Tempo.vote, as to how they classify who an African delegator is and who an African DREP is. And I think the feedback I got was that they do so by following the socials. So for instance, with DREPs, they try to, understand each and every DREPs in terms of how they are posting, where their posts are kind of targeted to, and also the delegators, they can't really say anything for the delegated, but at least for the DREPs, they can see that they follow their socials to confirm, where they represent basically. But
Yeah.
to talk about why the delegation is low or why people are even not delegating, I would say that and as an African, if I struggle to make money, right, I
Yeah.
quickly want to use the money for a budget that I have in terms of spending. So there are a lot of people who actually participate in these Cardano activities, like for instance, community reviews and catalyst activities, who make some earnings out of it. But majority of times, what I realize is that because they need that money to sort one or two issues, bills, whatever,
Yeah.
immediately they are paid. They go ahead to transfer whatever they got or convert it into fiat so that they can use for their expenses. That
Okay.
is one thing that really impedes delegation and even involvement in governance. Another thing also is that, like I said, there is too much technicalities in the ecosystem in terms of information relay. And
Okay.
a lot of people really are not technical, and that is where kudos comes to. I mean, WADA for taking the step in ensuring that there is this fair grounds where information can be disseminated in the African culture or in the African perspective, so that it is easy for people to actually consume, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people actually basically get to understand what the ecosystem is all about and what is happening in terms of activities, without having to worry about the technicalities that much. But those who are interested in technicalities, of course, like people like Kate, Maureen, they take up the mantle and then they do participation effectively. But for
Yeah.
those who are not, they just come and listen, they go, and then it is very difficult for them to make the decision because they are also skeptical about the process really as to how it can even benefit them. Like for instance, you
Yeah.
ask somebody, you are not delegating to any DREP. Why are you not delegating? Then they would ask you, what do I get from delegating to a DREP? And I think that is a question that we will all have to find ways and means of answering so that
Yeah.
it becomes easy and convenient for anybody coming from the African region to want to delegate. And then also, I mean, at this point, I think it will be very useful for the other regions to, see this as not a competition between various regions or inter-regions in the ecosystem, but rather a collective thing that we are all looking to do to further decentralize, the governance and the ecosystem. So they can use their platforms, of course, to promote some of these African DREPs, to basically help with delegation from their, regions. Because like we are saying, you don't want to have the situation where people are having a lot of delegation and then, they are sitting on millions of delegation. And it's like the whole influence is just in their hands. So if they wake up today and they say they want to do this because they have that high level of influence, of course they are able to do it and achieve it, right? But
Yeah.
they should look at how they can actually spread it out so that everybody can be, inclusive in the ecosystem. Thank you. I think people want to go,
Yeah.
but maybe we can take
Yeah. I hear you.
something
I
from
hear you,
them.
Nancy. On top of your submission has to do with people not holding on to their ADA for economic reasons, and that's interesting. Megan, you want to go? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to see. I noticed in the chat Kenrick mentioned that he needs to leave, so just wanted
Oh,
to
okay.
say thanks so much for joining us today. If you had a minute, I'd allow you a quick spot to just give any closing remarks.
Yeah,
Sure.
this was great discussion. Really appreciate all the insights here, and happy to talk further at some point about these issues. I really wish you well, and congratulations on the success of launching the WADA DREP. Looking forward to see how all this shapes up.
Thanks, Kenrick.
Thank Henrik. And maybe another time when we want to continue with this discussion, we'll be happy to invite you and you join us for more great insight. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, take care.
All right.
Bye.
Okay. Megan, what is holding us back from getting more?
Well, I think some of the answers have already been mentioned here. But maybe I'll kind of highlight something I think Kenrick was that brought it up earlier, is that as a as a delegator, with, only a few ADA, let's just say, my motivation to participate in governance and to have my ADA be meaningful is going to be going to a DREP that has a lot of voting power.
Yeah.
and kind of, often how democracy works. I'm from the US, so, we live in a democratic system. You usually vote for, or in this case, delegate to somebody who has the best chance of winning. Let's just put it on the kind of election level, that you mostly agree with, right? And now let's put that onto the DREP context. So you're going to put your ADA potentially with someone who you think has the most power to influence some of the things you care about. And, the rest, you can't probably perfectly align with anyone. But I think, what I see coming up with, even 9 DREPs in Africa, I think that's more than we've seen in, I don't know, in the past, in terms of standing alone participants, and would just like to see, how we can encourage that, and encourage people to delegate to, the African DREPs, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mas, you want to make a reaction?
Yeah, I do want to make a reaction, but I think I want to hear from Kit. I think he was wanting to leave as well, so maybe
Okay.
we can give him a few minutes, and then yes, I also would like to make a reaction. Thanks.
Sure.
So, why the question of apathy in governance in Africa? It has, in my understanding, it has 4 to 5 causes, right? The first one is cost and complexity, which Mr. Nanasafa has already mentioned. The other one is the financial instability, which you also mentioned, right? A lot of people are actually interested. I know for a fact that a lot of people in Ethiopia run the Catalyst Community Review, but they treat it more or less like airdrop farming. When they get the review, they just turn it to fiat, and because they are really in need of the money, that's why they are doing it like a job.
Yes.
The third one, which is the most important one, is the psychological disenfranchisation. And what does that mean? Is because these people already hold little ADA, right? They feel in depth that particular. So imagine someone holding 10 to 15 ADA in their wallets. In their mind, they cannot adequately change the cost of governance with just 10 to 15 ADA. So that is why they want to do that. That it is it is the psychology of human being, right? To always want to win. So that encourages them to delegate to DREPs that already have bigger pool. Now, the first one is basically laziness and reliance on a single entity. A lot of Africans are actually lazy, right? They don't want to participate unless right, it is directly affecting them, and their duty. So those are really just the inherent causes of apathy in Africa, and of course the cost as well, which is still part of the financial instability part.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Thanks, Kate. I'll push back slightly on that broad stroke regarding sort of, laziness. There are a lot of endemic issues. Obviously, it would be good if, there is a bit more participation. And in terms of, what I said earlier on regarding how can this problem be solved, I remember, I think about 2 years ago, or maybe it was a year ago, we met somewhere. Now, I don't even remember where, but it was one of these sort of Cardano get-together, regarding governance discussions. And one of my strong push was that we need to make it possible for people in regions like Africa, and so LATAM and so on and so forth, to earn within Cardano. Like, we need to figure out a good way to actually include them in the system in a way that money gets into their pocket. Because then this issue of, as Nana Safo said, money in, money out, could be solved. Because absolutely, let's not dance around the issue. If it's hand to mouth, people are struggling to survive, nobody is going to store their ADA for for governance, for delegation, even for staking. So I think that is a way to go around it. If we have a platform and if we have a voice, that is what we need to be pushing. That in what way are we actually ensuring that globally, if somebody is in the ecosystem, they have a way that they can actually earn and actually have some left over to participate in governance. So that was something that I pushed very hard, very hard. And I'm going to keep pushing for that, because we have to actually enable people to earn and be able to participate in the current stake-based delegation or governance system that we have. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. It's an interesting discussion, but unfortunately, we have 1 minute to the top of the hour. What do we do? Do we wrap up and maybe bring this back another time?
Maybe 5 more minutes, or
maybe, I don't know. What do we think? I have lots of questions to ask, and it looks like
yeah, I think this was a really good discussion. Maybe we could kind of wrap it up with just closing remarks if people wanted to respond.
Yeah. Okay, so let's do round table. Maybe closing remarks on the discussion so far, and maybe another time, Megan, maybe you can schedule another meeting for this particular topic, and we can cover the rest of the areas that we couldn't catch up.
Yeah, of course. I think this was, a very interesting and engaging discussion. As Mercy said, I think future conversations we should focus on, how to handle some of the issues we talked about. Although, I always advocate for positivity, I think it's important to kind of highlight the concerns and pitfalls in the system just so that we feel an urgency to take action. I kind of brought up in the chat and didn't feel like, didn't know if I could type eloquently enough my full response, but, the idea of, are we being lazy, or is it more a sense of like voter apathy? And, something came to mind from, our time in Cameroon, and I won't generalize this to Africa, but I'm sure, parallels could be made in some other places at least. But, living in Cameroon, obviously I can't vote in the political system, but I see, how citizens there vote. And, when they're voting, they know, that their vote isn't counting for anything, although they live in a supposed democracy. So I wonder if kind of that mindset of an understanding of how governance works also plays into the idea of voter apathy in the African context. So just wanted to mention that. But thanks, Samuel. I'd love to hear from everyone else. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe your final word just before you exit for, I know you have other schedules, just 1 minute and you leave us.
Yeah, very quickly, Nana Safo, and I'll hand it over to you. Absolutely, sure. We need to continue this conversation with a more sort of solution focus.
Yeah,
I believe that there's no problem that hasn't got a solution, and maybe the solution will come from Africa, and we need to organize to make sure that our voice is heard. So thank you everyone for being here. Emmanuel, I see you. Thanks for joining us. All right, thank you.
And as if we can just take over now.
Yes. All right. So what I would say is that in as much as you're looking for solutions, some of these solutions mostly will come from us as individuals in the ecosystem, and even how we onboard our friends into the ecosystem. I think we should make it a point to have it as part of our onboarding process that you kind of, psychologically sensitize whoever it is you're onboarding to know that, look, you are not just coming to, get money and then leave. You are coming to contribute to the development and growth of the entire ecosystem. So whatever it is that you make, you should know that Cardano is all about governance, and governance is all about what you hold in terms of stake as a community member, and that is your ADA. So if you are earning, say, 1,000 ADA, you need to learn how to save some for governance. So you can withdraw some, but you shouldn't withdraw all. Save some for governance so that at least you're also effective in the ecosystem. I believe if we take up this mantle and do it as such, we will be able to have or see our participation increasing with time to time. Thank you very much for having me, and thanks everyone for being here as well.
Yeah, thank you very much, Anasa. For anybody has a reaction? If not, we can wrap up.
Yeah, I know people are rushed for time, so I wanted to take a chance while we still have people to just briefly go over, the next WADA forum.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe we could move on to just the thank you slide. But we're kind of reevaluating how to provide the most impactful WADA forums in 2025.
Yeah.
So I wanted to highlight that we're going to focus on just one kind of big session like this per month. Although there will still be weekly meetings, so the first week of the month will really be the one to mark your calendar for an event like the one today, where we might have panel discussions, we might have more targeted content, but then next week, for example, we'll have kind of an open style meeting that anyone's welcome to. Still, it will be focusing on disseminating some of this information and marketing and sharing within our networks. And then the other calls, again, will be kind of more of a informal meeting style in terms of discussions and strategizing, and maybe talking about some of the things we talked about today more on an internal level, in terms of how the WADA community is coming together to talk about some of these issues. So just wanted to share that, and that will be also communicated in the follow-up via email in a more detailed way. But thanks everyone for being here today. I think this was a really exciting space.
Thank you very much, Megan, for that update. So in my concluding remarks, I say this conversation that we have had highlights fundamental truth. I earlier said that governance is only as strong as the people who participate in it. If we ensure diverse voices are heard, we risk creating governance models that are technically decentralized, but socially centralized. Cardano has built one of the most advanced blockchain governance models, but it's up to us, the community, to make it work. Beginning a DREP, engaging in governance discussions, and educating others are the ways we can ensure governance and reflect the real diversity of the Cardano ecosystem. So if you are listening today and wondering how to get involved, my challenge to you is simple. Ask a question, start a conversation, and take one step towards active participation. Because decentralization isn't just about code, it is about people. Thank you to our panelists and everyone here today. Let's continue pushing Cardano governance forward. Thank you, and speak to you soon. Have a good day wherever you are, and we are here next week. Please join us. Thank you. But you can also join our socials. We are on X, we are on IG, we are on Facebook, everywhere. If you have any questions with regards to DREP, feel free, reach out to us, hello@wada.org. You can also contact Nana Safo directly. He's the man on the beat for WADA DREP. And also keep delegating to the WADA DREP, and let's have a voice in the ecosystem. Thank you.